People always ask me the difference between barrels and hogsheads, so we might delve into that just now. Ladies and gentlemen, members and friends, it's Matt Bailey here, the branch director for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. And no, people don't always ask me what the difference is between barrels and hogsheads, but I want to explain the difference because you might read those terms in an outturn or on our website and go, wait, what is the difference between those? What does that mean? Because those words are just words until we work out what their meaning is and what that means for flavor and what that means for the cask. So I thought I might just touch on that very briefly with two whiskies. And I've deliberately chosen two whiskies that are both in our spicy and dry flavor profile, a hugely underrated flavor profile with lots of biscuity, savory notes that you get out of these whiskies. And I love them because I like a good savory whiskey. I like a dry savory whiskey sometimes because it's so full of flavor. It doesn't have to be necessarily overly sweet. Now these are Vibrant Lemon Fizz 39.241 from our October outturn, and 41.146 carved and crafted, I think from September outturn. So two very recent releases, both of which are still available and have only just recently come out. So it's very exciting. They are both from different cask types, however. Vibrant Lemon Fizz is from a second fill ex-bourbon barrel, and that's the word I want to focus in on here. And carved and crafted is from second fill ex-Oloroso hogshead. So I want to touch on each of those terms for a second. A barrel, or ASB, which stands for American Standard Barrel, is what the bourbon industry predominantly uses. And when I mean predominantly, I mean like pretty much 100% of the bourbon industry is powered by barrels. And the barrel shape and size is modeled off what it's always been, which is approximately a 200-liter barrel. It's a wooden vessel, it's a wooden oak cask, I should say, that holds spirit, and it is designed to hold around 200 liters. Now barrels do move around a little bit in shape and size. It's not a perfect art form in terms of the sizing, and like steel barrels that are built to spec for oil. These are like wooden barrels, obviously, to mature whiskey, and they are made out of oak predominantly, and they are 200 liter, and therefore you see sometimes they might be 190, 195, 210. They move around a little bit, but they usually squeeze 200 liters into them. That's how they mature bourbon, so that's how there's a good availability of ex-bourbon barrels. Now, hoggies or hogsheads, or let's call them hoggies, because most people call them ex-bourbon hoggies or ex-wine hoggy or whatever it's going to be. A hogshead is like a barrel, but slightly wider, slightly fatter, slightly more stumpy. They're the same, I guess, if you had the barrel on its head, they're the same height, generally speaking, as sometimes a little bit taller, but again, not an exact science. They look around the same size as a barrel, but they are just a little bit wider and a little bit sort of girthier. And so that means you can fit, usually most hogsheads are around 225, 235, 240 liters. So by coopering these barrels to add in an extra few staves, I think it's usually 3 or 4 staves adds into that barrel, it just widens it a bit. So it's a very small construction cost for an extra 40 liters per barrel. So it's, economically speaking, it makes sense. However, in the whiskey industry, or so I've been told, and someone may want to correct me on this, I was told a few years ago that we're seeing less and less hogsheads coming through because it's the time saving is not worth the difference of actually recoupering. So by actually recoupering those barrels to go from barrel to barrel, as in like maintaining barrel size, the wood usage is becoming dearer than the cost of doing so. So it's one of those economical issues, I guess. But you're seeing less hogsheads. Now, the difference between a barrel and a hogshead in terms of taste, generally find because a hogshead has a higher surface to spirit ratio, as in lower. Anyway, there's more wood, so it's got to cover more surface area of the spirit. Therefore, generally speaking, hogsheads generally taste a bit, I guess, more savory and have less of the cask impact, I should say, on that spirit in the same time a barrel would. So therefore, you might like to find that some hoggies need to be aged a little bit longer to actually hold that, to carry that spirit character and impart enough cask character to make it worthwhile. Which is why the hoggy is 15 years old and the barrel is 10. Now, we bottle when stuff's ready, not when it reaches a certain age. But in this case, it's an example of where the hogshead is a bit more sort of savory and a bit more sort of often you find hoggies, I find, generally speaking, on a taste level, hogsheads are generally a bit more Savory and spirit forward, which is what I love in a whiskey sometimes, being able to taste that lovely distillate character. And barrels can often be a bit sweeter and a bit more direct. So I hope that helps define the difference between a barrel and a hoggy for you, and makes a bit more sense out of some of the terms you might see on our website, on our outturn, or in some of our great literature, like our monthly Unfiltered. Are you guys reading Unfiltered? You should be reading Unfiltered. It's out every single month. Our editor, Adam Ioannidis, who's behind the camera right now, actually edits and writes content for it every month, as well as all the great international content you can read, from partner bars to venues to food pairings to everything going on in there. It's a great read. Of course, as well as Outturn, which at the time of watching this might be coming up on November Outturn, which is all very exciting. See you all soon. Barrels, hoggies, and I haven't been asked that many times, but now you know. Cheers.